When thinking about the Positron 3D printer, there is something that the Nomad said about this 3D printer, and yet it is the main feature.
And just as a result, it also prints upside down now, which turns out to be one of the highlights of this printer. Because that glass bed I held up, I totally burnt it out during our testing.
Well, let's dive into the interview with the Nomad about the Positron 3D printer, right here on Zachary's 3D Prints. So, hey, hello, this is Zachary from Zachary 3D Prints, and here next to me on this side, there is the Nomad. Just give a short introduction who you are.
Well, hello. Yes, I am the Nomad. I am the general manager / CEO / whatever, man of many hats of the Positron project. Kraylin brought me on about 2 years ago. We've been working very closely on this for the past 2 years. And as of May 1st, we have officially reached the milestone of launching pre-orders for batch 1.
Wow, for the first batch.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Just a little question that I have, and I was wondering that for a while. How came the Positron to be? Why did you start with the Positron?
So the Positron was really a passion project by Kraylin and his friend. So what was happening was, in university, we were traveling between a workshop and dorm rooms quite often. And being in engineering, we would always be 3D printing something, whatever it is. But what we wanted to do is we wanted our 3D printers, the ones that we own, to be part of our workshop. We didn't really want to rely on the school's 3D printers. School had great printers, but we wanted to, have our own because we tuned our printers. We knew how to use them the best, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea was, okay, well, we can't really lug a Ender 3 around. That's a little too heavy. Can't fit that in a backpack. Oh, well, Ender 2 Mini? Yeah, no, not really doesn't work. So we thought, well, what if we could fold the printer down? What if we could make it portable? There was some designs online for this specifically on making an Ender 3 a folding printer.
But proper printing, for example?
Yeah. But in order to unfold it, you would essentially have to square the gantry every single time you unfolded it and get it printing again. You have to relevel your bed every time. It was a headache. So we decided, okay, what if we made our own printer? What if we made our own that not only could fold, but what would be a good carrying case? And we decided, just because, why not? We decided, what about a filament box? Everyone has a 1 kilogram, 2 kilogram filament box.
Everybody who is printing, who has, as a matter of fact, I've got here also a filament box. So
yeah,
I totally understand.
Yeah, just until yesterday, I had a whole stack back there that I just broke down and threw out. But yeah, no, everyone has a filament box. So we thought, wouldn't it be funny if we could get it to fit inside one of those? So that was the challenge. We wanted to see if we could make a foldable printer that was easy to deploy and fit inside a filament box. Of course, we succeeded in that. We designed a printer that could do it. And just as a result, it also prints upside down now, which turns out to be one of the highlights of this printer that we found. It is a very fun printer. It is a very fun design. We spent, I want to say, 3 to 4 years from V1 to now refining it. And with the help of LDO, we were able to take it from this prototype design of the V3 to a production design of the V3.2, which now, if still available, you can pre-order yourself.
I had some travel expenses last week that I still need to recover from. Just a question: how did the first iteration of the Positron look like? Do you have an example that you wanted to show?
So I don't personally have that unit on me. That is in Kraylin's possession. If you want to see the more history of the Positron, I do recommend looking at Kraylin's videos, as they kind of go through the design process that we went through the whole history of the project. We started with the V1, which used belts, used an interesting mounting mechanism for the Z-axis, and then we moved on to V2, which is much closer to V3, and we were happy with where we were going, but it just wasn't there yet. So we skipped to V2 and we moved to V3, which we very much loved. At the time, we didn't have access to very thin belts. We only had access to synchromesh cables because some engineers in our school also are doing stuff for biomedical.
Which kind of belts are that for the normal common people? Because I'm not familiar with those kind of...
So synchromesh is its own cable. It's not a belt, it's a cable. I believe it's a nylon or steel wire that's wrapped in either another nylon or steel wire. So it creates this braided cable chain, which is able to change its axis of movement extremely easily.
I think I have seen those. I will add for the viewers a little picture of it, how it looks like.
Yeah, Synchromesh is very interesting. The problem is it's only made by one company from what we're aware of. So only one company in the world makes the Synchromesh cable.
Oh.
When we initially released the version 3 designs, our community single-handedly caused a supply chain shortage of this spec of Synchromesh cable. Now, mind you, this was in the middle of the pandemic, so supply chain shortages were a dime a dozen, and we just added on to the pile. So we just kind of sat there like, well, whoopsie daisy. We didn't mean for that to happen. We actually got calls from the manufacturer like asking us, are we being scammed right now because no one ever orders this belt or this cable? And we're like, no, we used it in your design. Sorry.
Now they want to actually sell something and they are having a shortage. And they are asking the customer, are you sure? Is this not a prank?
It was that was one wild ride. But once we started working with LDO, that obviously became a point of contention where it was we weren't able to get the Synchromesh reliably, and it was a little expensive of a part.
Where are we talking about for the length that you would need for that version?
For the length and the spec of the cable, because like the way it was wound, it has its own spec to it. I don't really remember all the details on it. All I remember is that it was too difficult to work with if you were printing with it and the cable snapped, which actually happened more often than we'd wish.
Oh.
It would just become a tangled mess that you'd be undoing for hours just to then have to redo entirely with another difficult to source cable. So it just wasn't worth it. It wasn't user friendly. It wasn't easy to maintain, and it was so fragile. So when working with LDO, they were able to get 3mm thin belts for the Positron, which had all the benefits of a Synchromesh cable, but it was a belt. So it's much easier to work with, much easier to maintain. And if for whatever reason you lost tension in the belt, it is really easy to fix in that regard.
Makes more sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just one of the many things that we've encountered along this journey, and we're very excited. We've been spending the past 2 years simply refining the printer. So in the original V3 design, since again, it was just a prototype, we actually took, I believe it was just a standard V6 heat block, or it was specifically an Ender 3 heat block. And what we did was we flipped it on its side and we drilled a hole through the part of it where you would screw in the nozzle. We drilled a 90-degree hole in. So the filament would come in this side, and then we drilled a hole there. And then where the original hot end would be, we put a brass insert that would redirect the filament through the 90-degree thing that we drilled. When we first started working with LDO brought Fadus on right away. It wasn't even a question of whether or not they could help us. They wanted to.
Cool.
And we were very excited to work with Fadus. So we were a little ambitious at first. We thought, well, what if...
How ambitious?
Pretty ambitious. We did not really know entirely the fluid dynamics of molten filament, and especially if you throw in abrasives, we still don't entirely know how those work when you send them through a 90-degree bend or something like that. We're still learning some interesting aspects of our design. What we asked Fadus is, hey, would it be possible to make a hot end or a heat block that does a perfect curve into the 90-degree bend? So instead of just going like this and then straight up, it actually curved into it. So that's what this was. This is the first hot end made by Fadus. Yep, I'm just taking the sock off. So I love showing this off because it is a beautiful feat of engineering. Absolutely gorgeous. If my camera would properly focus, doesn't seem to want to. But this is die cast hot end. Being a die cast hot end, it was actually a little bit difficult to manufacture. So in the current revision, we moved to machining the heat blocks again. But of course, Fadus is still making the blocks, and they are, again, absolutely beautiful machined parts. They look amazing. And with obviously advances in technology since we started this project, this unit uses, old V6 style heat cartridges. Well, now we use ceramic heat cartridges similar to bamboo printers, which are far more efficient, far better at heating, and far smaller, which when you're dealing with a compact printer, everything needs to be small.
Sounds really amazing. I also saw the glass plate. What is the story behind the glass plate? Because in the hotel, I heard you say that you need to see that it is squishy. How was the first or the second version versus what you have now?
So the first glass plate looked like this, which this is just... if you always look at your back window in a car, you see those lines on the back window. That's what this is. These are just defrosting wire. And that's what we used at first because that would heat the bed. And it worked. It worked pretty well, but obviously you can't really see through it all too well. So we're miffed with it a bit. It worked, but we knew we could do better. So our team worked together and we worked with the Positron LT team, and we came up with a perfectly clear glass bed. So we worked to create this glass bed here. We wanted to be able to see the underside of the print as easily as possible. We thought being able to see the first layer was something that you could do on any other printer, but you can't see how it's adhering to the bed. You can always see it pressing against the surface, but how do you know it's filling in all those gaps? How do you know it's really meshing with that surface? So using a glass bed like this, you're able to see how it presses up against the surface. So we wanted this, but how do we get that to work without any of the strips of copper?
Yeah.
Well, we figured out that we could use an ITO coating. Now, if you're not familiar with, I believe it's indium tin oxide. Indium tin oxide is a type of coating that is conductive. In fact, everyone has used it in their phones. The glass screen of modern phones uses ITO coatings for the touch sensitivity, so it can detect where you're touching. Just so happens, if you apply voltage to that instead of reading a voltage, you can make it heat up. So we figured out we can add the ITO coating to the back of the bed, and by doing that, we're able to heat up the bed almost perfectly evenly without any like cold spots, and we were able to get a really good reading. Now, of course, there's going to be some cold spots just because of how thermodynamics work, but
but nobody actually is going to print on the edge. But
we wanted to make sure that you could utilize the full size of the bed, so the ITO coating really did help with making an even print surface.
How big can you print in millimeters for reference?
So the build volume right now is 180 by 180 by 170.
Okay.
So 180X, 180Y, 170Z. We kind of limit it. It could go up to 185 to 190, but because of, the type of homing system we use, which is sensorless homing, it can sometimes be a few millimeters off here or there. So for our safety buffer, we make sure to keep it to 180, 180, 170.
You can still get amazing prints with the 180.
Oh, absolutely.
I saw also physics working on it to dial it in. What's the story behind that?
So Nathan's part of our team. I brought him on as some back-end development assistants. So both me and him have a very deep history in IT. And there's one thing when you work with cybersecurity, you can know absolutely everything about it, but you need someone to double check your work, because you could be absolutely confident in your system, but the only time you're going to know when there's holes in your fence is when someone else takes a look at it. So Nathan helped us just look over things, and we're shoring up our cybersecurity. Not that we really need to, we're not holding national security documents, but it's good to make sure that we keep everyone's information private, secure. We always wanted to make sure when we were collecting information for our mailing list or for cookies and stuff for the website, we don't intentionally sell it. I can't control what our web host is doing. We use Shopify, so Shopify does some stuff with data, but as an entity, Positron 3D doesn't want to sell your data. It's not in our interest at all. So we're gonna always try our best to protect that data and just keep it safe.
Very cool. I mean, you hear a lot of things, and I see that also on Twitter, a lot of data breaches, hooking your printer to Wi-Fi, and everybody on the other side of the world can read your data and know exactly what you are printing. You want to make sure that people have the security, that the device is safe to use, that there are not going to be any issues, and that you can print a Benji, that you can print a calibration cube or other stuff that you want to maybe keep private for yourself. So I mean, security wise, it's very much needed.
Yeah, it's very scary when you have an internet connected printer such as a Positron or a Voron or a Bamboo, and it is very scary to think that someone could get into that machine and tell it to do whatever it is they want. Now, with the Positron, we have two things that are kind of in our benefit. So our printer is DC powered. So we use a laptop power supply to power the unit. So you can't really go too far. You could try to do thermal runaway, but you're going to burn out the power supply before it really does any damage. I know that from experience, because that glass bed I held up, I totally burnt it out during our testing. And yeah, the whole machine shut down. It's absolutely safe, and it was kind of worrisome to see some smoke come off one of our beta units, but I was safe because the current protection in the brick, kind of tripped, and we're good as a result. But the other nice thing is a lot of Voron printers and this is not a fault of Voron specifically. Voron is great. We love them. We love the guys that work over there. But a lot of printers in general that use Clipper use Wi-Fi as a method of connection. Now, what that does is a lot of times you're going to be using SSH over Wi-Fi to modify the printer or configure Clipper, all this stuff. A lot of times people don't turn that off. They don't turn off SSH, which can be dangerous, which is not good. It means if someone were to get into your network, they could get into your printer and do whatever.
Do whatever they want. Yeah.
Now, we're not necessarily going to be doing anything different when it comes to the Positron, because we want people to be able to configure their Clipper instance however they want. And that is completely up to the people. We're going to provide a good base of all the settings and everything. But when it comes to security, you do what you want. But we want to add more options. So one of the things that I pushed for is an Ethernet port on the Positron. Not many printers come with Ethernet ports nowadays, which is weird because it's really useful. For example, when you are connecting to a hotel Wi-Fi, if you hooked up a normal Clipper printer to hotel Wi-Fi, well, your IP address, unless you put a password on that Clipper instance, would just be public, and that's not good. Or, for example, at Rocky Mountain, if you connect your printer to the event Wi-Fi, again, anyone at the event can plug in and connect to it. Not good. So we wanted to add an Ethernet port for two things. One, for air gapping your printer in environments you just don't want to connect to Wi-Fi. You can just connect it to your laptop or connect it to a little access point you bring with you, and immediately you can just connect to it directly and have access to nothing else. So only you can connect to that printer. Additionally, we are having it so you can do hotspot. So you can run a hotspot on the printer. You can connect to it with your phone or with your laptop and print from the hotspot. So we're adding all these options so that people can really make this printer the perfect travel printer, so that connectivity is not an issue. You can set it up however it works best for you.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, it's a device that you want to use. Security wise, I always go for Ethernet port because I don't mind having an extra cable hanging on the backside of my printer, but I know it's more secure than just using Wi-Fi.
Yeah, one of the things I love to do, at least with my Clipper printers, is I usually add a PoE hat on my Pis, so that if I shut down the printer, the Pi stays powered on. And what that would often allow me to do is, say I detect a thermal runaway event occurring, and if I shut down things, it's still running. Well, I actually have all my printers on Wi-Fi outlets, so I can turn them off. But the benefit of using an Ethernet port on my Pis, especially ones with PoE, the Pi can stay powered on and turn off that outlet without losing power itself. So I can continue to monitor what's going on the printer without losing power entirely. So there's just some advantages of that. The Positron does not have PoE, but it's not impossible.
So now talking about the connectivity, how is it going to work for people when they are going to receive the Positron? How to handle it? Is there going to be an app specially made for it in order to send files over using your phone and an app? Or are you going to use a slicer and then upload it via a Clipper portal kind of thing?
We're not going to do anything fancy. So first and foremost, everyone on the Positron project has day jobs, and this is a passion project.
Okay.
So we're mostly hardware guys. We're not really software guys. We're not creating any custom software for this printer. We're not creating a walled garden, nor do we want to create a gated community. We want this to be completely open for anyone to approach. That's why we're running Clipper. That's why we're running Fluid and Mainsail, so people can go in and use whatever they want. So there's plenty of apps already out there, like Orca Slicer, that connects to Clipper instances and just works.
Are there going to be some profiles already available for like Prusa Slicer, Orca Slicer, any slices?
Yes, we are currently working on getting an Orca Slicer profile published. We definitely want this to be part of the official release. Obviously, I can't promise that by the time this gets in people's hands that profile will be published to the official repo, but we are doing everything we can to get that up and running. We will make sure the profile is available to everybody, because this is a unique printer. It is Bowden. It's its own little microcosm of things. So we want to tune this as best as we can and make sure that is an available profile to everybody.
Can you give some more specs about Positron for the people who did hear something about it but are not fully aware about the Positron in dimensions, the current, stuff like that?
So the Positron is, first and foremost, it is meant to be a folding 3D printer for travel. So that's the biggest selling point of this printer. The idea is that you can put this thing inside a travel case, like the one I have here, and this is totally viable for carry-on on airplanes. In fact, I brought this on my flight to the Rocky Mountain Rep Rap Festival. And as I followed the TSA guidelines, so all I did was I made sure that this case was in its own bin going through our TSA security. And we weren't stopped once. We were let through, no problem. Same thing for the LDO team. The LDO team's positrons were let through with no problem, and we were golden. So
okay, super.
Yeah, so the biggest thing is that this is able to be portable. It comes with this Pelican case as well, so everyone who orders one will get a Pelican case. And the portability is phenomenal. You, in about 1 minute, you can deploy it from its folding position to a printing position, and you'll be ready shortly thereafter.
Wow.
But in terms of technical specifications, we already mentioned that the build volume is 180 by 180 by 170. The hot end is rated to get up to 250 degrees Celsius, so you should be able to print PLA and P2G without problem. Now, you could get it up to 300. We don't recommend it.
Because of
we don't want to cause any problems. We kind of limited our testing. We know it could go further, but we're pulling it back just to keep things safe.
I mean, it is a portable printer. If you want to showcasing 3D printing, PLA, PETG, ABS?
We're going to recommend against ABS right now.
Okay.
So the glass bed can get up to 100 degrees Celsius, but we are worried that obviously it's a glass bed. Someone could easily burn their hands on it when trying to handle it. But even more so, we don't want to push it past 100 degrees Celsius because it can actually start to damage itself past that point. So we don't recommend ABS. In theory, you could, but we're going to recommend against it.
Okay.
We haven't tested ABS or ASA, but based off our numbers, we could theoretically print them. But here comes another wonderful question. How does ABS and ASA work upside down? We know PLA and PTG work just fine printing upside down, but we all know that ABS and ASA, they need an enclosure not just for the fumes they let off, but because they warp when you don't have a good chamber temperature.
It's an open printer, yeah. But do you have some other things about the specifications of the Positron?
So our print speeds, we're able to get up to about 350 millimeter print speed, give or take. We're officially rating it at 250 millimeters per second right now. Again, we know it can go faster, but we're pulling it back because this isn't really designed to be the fastest 3D print in the world. It's meant to be portable. It can travel at maximum about 350 millimeters per second. That we know it can do, with an acceleration of about 9,800 millimeters cubed. It weighs about 3 kilograms, and that's really it I have for right now in terms of the pure technical specifications. But we've been testing our unit for a couple thousand hours. We've been hitting it pretty hard. We've been testing a ton of different things. And there's a lot of things we know about this printer and that we know very well.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things we still don't know. And specifically, one of the things we don't know is how upside down printing has really changed how it prints as a whole. One of the most common questions I got at Rocky Mountain was, why upside down? That was the most common question I was asked. And I like to joke and say I got tired of it at one point, because eventually I started telling them that's the wrong question, but it is. So we did not choose to print upside down. We chose to make a portable printer. And to achieve that by putting all the kinematics in the base of the system, we just so happened to print upside down.
Basically, have only the bed made out of glass and a very tiny profile to support the bed to lift only the bed up.
Yep.
For me, it makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense in its own weird little way. But of course, now we have to question, okay, we know that one big benefit is bridging support. You can get much further bridging on the Positron than most other printers.
How big?
I don't know the exact measurement. I just know that bridging works better. I probably should have pulled out a ruler rather than just be like, wow, that's doing great. I actually do have a print here. This one right here. So this was done on the Positron. So it was printed like this, upside down. And if you could tell, it's a mini Positron. But if you look right here, or right in between my head, I'm going to aim at my forehead. That's a bridge. Those little arms didn't have any supports when they printed. And I mean, again, this is not the best quality camera, but you can see the bridging support is pretty good on a piece that's that long. You know, in normal printers, bridging that far along is a challenge. This one we printed on the bamboo. This was printed on the bamboo like this, so I can't really show bridging support differences. But yeah, just from that alone, you can definitely tell that it's able to get bridging much further, which is definitely just a unique aspect. You can also kind of see the support material interface. Yeah. It's different. It's different in a very weird way that I can't really put my finger on, because supports on the Positron work differently than other printers. So normal FDM printers, when you're using supports, they act like scaffolding that is holding up the white so that it's not coming down. Mm-hmm. On a positron, it does that, but more like a resin printer. The difference is a resin printer, it supports pluck the resin off of the FEP sheet. But with a positron, you're not plucking the filament off of a plate. You're holding it up from falling down just in the completely opposite direction that you normally would be. So that's one thing we're very interested to see when people who really know these slicers better than we admittedly do, once they get their hands on this, let's see what kind of weird and custom support systems actually might work better for upside down printing. We don't know the answer yet, but we are very excited to see what that answer might be.
I'm very much looking forward to see results, what people are doing with those positrons. I'm looking forward how the whole trip is going to be. I think it's going to be amazing.
It's going to be wild. I remember when I first saw the positron, when I first saw this bizarre thing that prints upside down, I was like, how does that work?
How does it work?
It's amazing. Yeah, I was introduced to the positron through Kraylin's videos, and I was invited to be part of his moderation team. That's how I got involved in the whole project. And I'm still fascinated by this to this day. This is still such a fascinating 3D printer that I am honored to be part of the team. And we're still finding out so much interesting things about this. I think it's going to be a good few years until we really fully understand the nuances of printing upside down. And I'm here for it. I'm here for this trip because this is going to be a fun one.
Oh, I believe that. I do want to highlight it a little bit. There was also about a Kickstarter campaign also doing an upside down thing with printing.
I believe I know what you're talking about.
I don't know the brand. I don't want to give any credits to it, but I saw it and I was like,
fast that we don't.
The hot end, the way that it does it, it's like basically the same as the positron that they, copy it.
So Jason from LDO first alerted us to that printer, and for those who might still be confused, it's the cylindrical one. And once I say that, pretty much everyone who knows about it ever since that one thing. So it definitely felt like a not to necessarily throw criticism, but it definitely felt like a trust fund project. Just something fancy, kind of running on the coattails of upside down printing. Because from what we could tell, it didn't have a purpose to print upside down. There really wasn't a reason. With Positron, our reason is that we wanted to be portable. But with a machine of that size, there's really no reason if it's not portable. Yeah, as even I just said, we still don't know the added value, at least fully, of upside down 3D printing. I know that overhangs are better with an upside down printer, and I know that bridging support is better. I've been working on this project for 2 years now, and that's what I got. Because I'm not an expert in, slicing or, fluid dynamics of plastic. I just like to print fancy boats and other fun little items.
We in the 3D printing space all about our boats. Yeah, I don't know. They are so fun to print, and people make actually a challenge of it to print them within a certain amount of time. I was happy to have a Banshee within an hour 3-4 years ago.
Right. And like right now, we have that standard for the positron. Right now, I'm able in my tuning to get a positron to print a Banshee in about an hour. We certainly can go faster. And I cannot wait to see people doing speed printing on this printer because I know it can be done. I think I've seen a sub 30-minute Banshee on a positron. I think it was an LT, I believe. But we know that it's possible. We know it can be done. And I'm here for it. It's going to be cool. I cannot wait for the community to get their hands on this printer.
Also, a thing that I encountered during the editing of the video that I posted today on Wednesday about the interview from LDO Jason or Jason LDO. I saw this little kit from on AliExpress. I'm not going to mention the brand name. There are already kits available. What's your take on that?
So there was an attempt to make kits available for the original version 3 of the Positron. And that one kit that you mentioned is one of those attempts. Now, that company did not really work with us at all. They reached out to us and asked one question about our bill of materials, and that was it.
Wow.
They have told individuals that they are working with us. They're not. We have never seen 1 penny of donation from any of the sales that they've made, which we don't require any donations to be made, but we're an open source project. Without donations, without the support of the community, our project will die because it is expensive to keep open source projects running. I did recently put on Twitter, hey, do not buy from this manufacturer because of all the things they've said, saying that they've been working with us personally, and we've never heard from them. We don't recommend that at all. There are other manufacturers that have worked with us. Fabrico and West 3D have been selling V3 parts for the past 2 years, and they've been helping us with everything. And now they're having the V3.2 from LDO. So we don't recommend trying to build the version 3 because the version 3 is the one with synchromesh, and there's a lot of problems with it. So we just don't recommend it anymore. But we will be releasing the open source files for the 3.2 probably towards the end of May or within June, so that if you wanted to self-source the latest Positron yourself, you could. But we're just tuning up a few things. We are very happy with the current kit. We are very happy with the custom parts that LDO was able to provide, like their custom control boards and their custom electronics. So we were absolutely able to get things far better than what we were able to do on our prototype machines.
Your advice is buy the kit from LDO at Fabrico or West 3D or any other sites where you can pre-order this LDO kit for the Positron?
Yep. Right now, it's West 3D, Fabrico, KB3D. Those are in the United States. For the UK, Desktop Machine Shop and 12-3D. In the EU, we have Levedigs, and in the Australian market, we have Dremsy. So those are currently the ones that I know have listings for the Positron, but likely that is going to expand as the time goes on. If you go to ldomotion.com, there is a page on their website that shows the list of all LDO retailers, and all of those retailers have access to purchase positrons directly from LDO. So if there is a preferred retailer in your region that you want to possibly get the positron, I say reach out to your preferred retailer and see if they can reach out to Jason to see if they can acquire some kits.
Okay, so for everybody who wants to buy this Positron kit from LDO, I'll put the links in the description, which the Nomad already talked about. Of course, follow those links and check out where you can also get the amazing Positron kit for yourself and have a lot of fun about it. Some little ending for you at your part for the Positron project?
Well, I mean, that is a good question. You know, I'm open in regards to the Positron constantly. You know, it's not a perfect printer. If you want a printer that prints really well, there's some other options. But the Positron is designed to print very well, but it is a different printer. It's not necessarily designed to print fast, but it's designed to print on the go, which is the most important part. It can print fast, which is absolutely a bonus when you are on the go, but more so if you are going to trade shows, if you are going to job sites constantly, if you are staying at hotel rooms quite often, and you want to bring your hobby of 3D printing with you, or the job site requires some jig to be made, or you're going to a trade show and you want to show off the benefits of additive manufacturing, the Positron is going to be the easiest printer for you to bring with. And it is going to be a little bit of a showboat because it's going to turn heads. It's going to be, people are going to look at it and be like, what is that? Even more so than any other 3D printer. We've heard a lot of people, when bringing other printers through TSA, get stopped for their printers because you have this large metal box that has wires and tubes and it looks suspicious. But the Positron is able to get through no problem because it's compact, it's in its own contained box, and as long as you follow the guidelines, they're fine with it.
Oh, yeah,
so
sure.
If you just want a printer that's easy to travel with, if you want a printer that's different and unique, and if you just want something new to tinker with, the Positron is a phenomenal choice. And you can find out more at positron3d.com.
Check out the link in the description where you can pre-order or find where you can buy the Positron. Nomad, thank you so much for being here, and stick around.
Thank you for having me.
Having some fun, hearing about all the good things that LDO does, and making sure that you will get quality products for your Positron 3D printer. Ordering a whole kit, printing some of the parts. But you know what is also amazing what LDO has? Check out this video right over here, where I had an interview with Jason from LDO talking about their amazing products for your future 3D printer builds. Right here.